Hi everyone, this video is for first time marathon runners. I'm going to warn you it's going to fly in the face of the advice you've been given by most people in all likelihood. So, one of the bits of advice I was first given when it came to saying I was going to do my first marathon was just aim for completion. Okay, now I've heard this a lot of times, both from people approaching me for coaching for their first marathon, but also when I've talked to friends in the presence of other friends and they've talked about doing their first marathon. Just focus on completion, don't worry about the time. It's a nice thing to say to somebody. It takes the pressure off of them when they're probably kind of nervous about this at the very least. But it does a massive disservice by having that approach. Really, what we're looking at, if you're going to be running a marathon, the chance if you get to the start line, you're going to finish. Something like 99% of people who start a marathon do complete their race. So, what we need to focus on instead is getting you to the start line. That means enough time to train appropriately for it and training in the appropriate way with regards to distances, paces, strength training, nutrition on the day, but also training with that as well. Now, one of the things I see most people get wrong when it comes to this approach is they just run. They don't really have much structure, and there's not enough certainly of work at maybe their not target pace, but at an appropriate pace, certainly for them to be ready. So they either go into far too many long runs where they're going far too early at them, or obviously the other time, sometimes far too late. There's this kind of grey area in the middle of how far is too far, how fast should you go, and that really depends on your own speed. And again, not a goal time, but an appropriate assumption of a time that you're going to run. So, for instance, if you're running a 2 hour half marathon, you're probably going to be looking at something like 4:30, 4:20 for the marathon distance. So that's fine. You don't have to aim for that speed on race day. You can run it and you can run it in 5 hours and it doesn't matter. You've completed and that's absolutely fine. That's great. But you still need to probably train around that sort of pace to stimulate the right types of benefits. If you're training much, much slower, you're probably going to be running quite clunkily. You're not going to be moving very, very well. And also you're going to maybe miss out on some of the benefits you could be getting from the training as well. Now, there are loads and loads of ways of doing this, and there is no kind of one approach that's best. I don't even have necessarily a method. I have more of a philosophy where we look at you as an individual. But the key thing really is that we do need to make sure that training is specific to you, your body, your needs. And although there's not a time goal, we still need to attach a time and pace to your training, really importantly. I was told in my first marathon, don't aim for sub 3, that's too fast for a first marathon, blah, 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 blah. People doing it generally, I think, with the best of intentions, so maybe some people not. But it was a perfectly sensible thing to do. I'd done loads of half marathons at this point, done lots and lots of training runs. I'm a very analytical person. I was a running coach. I was already a PT for 7 years before I did my first marathon. I did lots of racing that year, so I really knew exactly where my fitness was, and it was progressing quite rapidly. And I gave myself 8 months to train for this, which I've been kind of vocal about, but I don't let people know. So when I was having these conversations, people say, "Oh, you shouldn't aim for that, shouldn't be this." Like, it was actually kind of working quite in my favor because if someone tells me I can't do something, I'm going to do it. And I'm not a combative, kind of arrogant person like that. I just wanted to kind of prove them wrong a little bit and prove to myself that I could do it when people were doubting me. And around 2:51 of the first race. Now, obviously, I have several advantages in my knowledge. My body seems quite good at this, and it's the one thing it is good at. So really that was different context. So for your context, for most people running their first marathon, 4 hours, 3:30, whatever is absolutely fine. Doesn't matter. There's no pressure on that, but you do need to train at a certain target race pace. And if people are telling you, don't worry about that, just aim for completion. Question how much they really know about your running and how they've actually looked at you. I couldn't look at somebody and go, they should aim at this pace unless I've done the assessments or have conversations with have race pace projections. All this information is really important when it comes to setting up your race pacing, setting up the way you train for the 4 to 6 months ideally into your first marathon. So if people are giving you advice without really asking any questions or without really knowing your context, say thank you, smile, but get some advice, whether you research it yourself, whether you get somebody to help you through it, but don't just take it on face value that they're actually right, because the most experienced marathon runners know themselves, but they do not know you. They cannot know you without all that other information. See you soon.